That perfect job you landed, maybe the ideal life you've carefully built, all those aspirations driving you. Does it ever feel like maybe it's not quite yours? You know that little whisper, sometimes nagging, whose life am I truly living? Today we're really ripping open that question. We're diving deep into the invisible forces, the ones that shape our earliest ambitions, often way before we even know who we are. Get ready, because we're going to uncover the blueprint you perhaps didn't even know existed, and look at how you might begin redrawing it. Not with rebellion, necessarily, but with real self-discovery.
Exactly. We're embarking on a really crucial deep dive here. It's into this fascinating and, yeah, often deeply emotional landscape of how our earliest environments shape us. We're talking our families, our cultures, even just the unspoken messages all around us. They implant beliefs, ambitions. They get so deeply rooted, they really feel like our own. We'll explore the subtle psychological stuff underneath it all. Hear some powerful stories from people who found the courage, really immense courage, to break free from paths they didn't choose. And most importantly, we want to equip you with actual insights, strategies on how to first identify and then consciously unlearn these generational patterns. This isn't about blaming anyone, we're tearing down your past. It's about understanding it, integrating it, and then consciously stepping onto your authentic path. Without all that guilt, we're going to unpack this together, give you the tools, hopefully, to really become the master of your own destiny.
Okay, so let's kick things off exploring this idea, this invisible blueprint. We often think of ourselves as, totally autonomous, forging our own careers, making independent choices, charting our unique course. But what does the research, or even just, looking around, actually tell us? It seems it's rarely a solo journey. Think about Chance Clutter's research. It really highlights that parental influence on career choice isn't just there, it's consistently important.
Right? Consistently.
Yeah, often overriding advice from teachers, faculty, even career counselors. Even when young adults, move away for college or work, this isn't just a minor thing. It plays a key role, as the research notes, in shaping these huge life decisions.
And what's really compelling is just how deep that influence goes. Walter Bratcher put it so well. He said the family unit is the most powerful system to which human beings can belong.
Wow, the most powerful system.
Think about that. It's constantly, often very subtly, sort of fabricating the direction, the choices in an individual's life. And it's not always direct commands like, you must be a doctor. Often it comes from the very fabric of the family dynamics, those unconscious interactions. We're talking about things like attachment styles, enmeshment. Essentially, how emotionally connected or maybe over-connected family members are. If those dynamics get a bit dysfunctional, maybe there's an unhealthy level of emotional fusion or people can't really differentiate themselves. That can really hinder someone's self-efficacy.
Their belief in themselves.
Exactly. Their belief in their own ability to succeed in, say, finding a vocation or even just making independent life choices. When your sense of self is too tangled up with the family unit, the idea of diverging from what's expected, it can feel like a threat to your belonging,
And this invisible influence, these ingrained strategies, they start so early, don't they? Shaping us in ways we might not even grasp until much, much later. Dr. Steve Cycle and Jason Sandora from Ask Dr. Steve, they talk about this pivotal concept, family role patterns. And these aren't conscious choices a kid makes, but intelligent adaptations. I like that phrase.
It is good. Intelligent adaptation.
Yeah. Unconscious strategies kids adopt to help the family function, keep harmony, and crucially, secure their place, their value within that system. But here's the kicker. These strategies, they don't just stay in childhood. They keep running in the background, shaping our adult lives, our relationships, career choices, even our basic sense of self-worth.
And connecting this to the bigger picture, these roles often, almost paradoxically, lead to suppressing your own authentic needs, your desires, which can, lay the groundwork for those externally imposed dreams we're talking about. Let's take the good child pattern. Very common. These are the kids praised constantly, maybe overtly, for achievements, good behavior, responsibility. They learned very early that love and approval came through performance, good grades, following rules, meeting or exceeding expectations.
Right. The validation is external.
Totally. And the feeling of disappointing others becomes almost crippling for them. It's a core characteristic. In adulthood, this can show up in so many subtle ways. Maybe you find yourself always trying to be the perfect partner, the agreeable friend, the overachieving employee, even if it burns you out. They often really struggle with conflict because any disagreement feels like it threatens that whole good image. And the internal pressure, it's immense. They might say, I feel like such a failure when I make mistakes because anything less than perfect feels like complete failure.
That all or nothing thinking.
Exactly. Their inner critic gets incredibly harsh, just relentlessly focusing on what they achieve, the awards, the praise, rather than just letting themselves be, defining their own worth from inside. The key insight here is how these intelligent adaptations, which started for survival or acceptance, can subtly trap us in this lifelong performance review. You get so focused on external achievement that your self-worth gets kind of detached from your authentic self, leading to an inner critic that just stifles your true desires. It's this silent, relentless pressure to do rather than just be.
That makes so much sense. It paints such a clear picture of that internal struggle. And it's not just the good child, right?
Mm-hmm.
As Dr. Steve highlights others too, like the caretaker pattern, the child who learns early to feel responsible for everyone else's emotions, mediating fights, hearing things like, you're so mature, or you always help out.
Oh, yeah. The little adult.
Right? And they grow up finding it incredibly hard to say no without feeling massive guilt. Their whole identity gets built around being helpful, the fixer. Saying no feels dangerous, almost like betraying themselves because their worth is tied to what they do for others. And then there's the flip side, the invisible child, the kid who was so easy, never any trouble.
Just fades into the background.
Exactly. Learn not to ask for much, stay out of the way, minimize their presence. As adults, they can feel deeply uncomfortable taking up space, struggle to speak up even when they have something vital to say, avoid visibility, always suppressing their own needs. What really stands out to you about how these roles, even if they started as smart adaptations, can lead to a life of, well, unchosen dreams, or maybe just dreams that are too quiet to ever be truly fulfilling?
What's really striking is how these patterns, even though they were intelligent for navigating childhood, often lead to this internal dissonance later on, this feeling of being out of sync with yourself. These adaptations become really rigid in adulthood, limiting our ability for genuine self-expression. They create this kind of internal script we keep replaying, often without realizing it. It raises a big question, doesn't it? If these roles were about securing a place in the family, how do we then secure our own place, authentically, self-defined, when those old strategies are still running the show, often below our awareness? It's almost like our childhood self designed this survival suit, but now as adults, we're kind of trapped inside it long after the immediate danger is gone, unable to breathe freely or move in new ways.
And that leads us right into the power of implicit memories and conditioning. Dr. Nicole LePera talks about this brilliantly. She says, our minds seek the familiar. Repeating the same behaviors is called a pattern, which comes from childhood conditioning. We repeat what we know. And this isn't just about the obvious rules, the direct instructions parents give. It's also, maybe more powerfully, about those subtle messages, the unspoken stuff, the emotional charges that form deep inside us before we even have words for them.
Yeah.
They just become our default settings.
Yeah, the defaults. And Ranveer Allahbadia, the content creator, he illustrates this really well with his idea of implicit memories, these unconscious recollections that shape how we react without us even knowing why. He gives this great example. Imagine a 3-year-old spills milk, gets yelled at really intensely. Years later, that person might just unconsciously hate milk, the smell, the taste. Because deep down, on a nonverbal level, they associate it with that fear, that anger from childhood. The conscious memory might be gone, but the implicit emotional link, it stays.
Wow, that's powerful.
And Ranveer shares his own story about this. He had mixed parenting. His mom built his confidence, encouraged communication, positivity. But his dad, a doctor from a very academic background, would often insult him, say things like, you won't end up as anything, or you'll end up a security guard. He points out his dad might have thought it was motivating, but actually, it created deep self-belief issues, really scarred his confidence. Ranveer explains how these childhood experiences, these implicit memories, they become our rules for life, affecting our inner voice forever. He describes it like pressing the accelerator and the brake at the same time. You want to move forward, you have goals, but something deep inside, that unconscious rule, is holding you back, creates huge internal friction. This isn't just some interesting psychological quirk. It's really a call to identify those unseen rules that might be hitting the brakes on your potential.
So it's not just the explicit stuff, but the emotional residue, those tiny moments that become foundational. And this blueprint isn't just family, right? It gets layered with broader cultural, societal influences. The air we breathe, the stories we hear.
Oh, absolutely. Socioeconomic status, gender, race, ethnicity, they all add layers, complicate things, amplify parental influence. add external expectations, sometimes real barriers. For example, studies show parents from different social classes often instill different core values. Middle-class parents might emphasize initiative, self-direction, autonomy, kind of prepping kids for professional roles needing independent thought. Whereas parents from lower economic classes, maybe because of their own work environments, might inadvertently encourage more conformity, following rules. That leads to different early work experiences, different skills, often towards blue-collar jobs.
That makes sense. Different implicit tracks.
Exactly. And a middle-class student might see their parents' income mainly as a tool to get a specific career, like funding university. A low-income student might not even assume that's possible or might not see those high-level careers as attainable or even visible options for them. These aren't conscious choices, usually. They're deeply ingrained ideas about your place and possibilities in the world.
That's a really powerful distinction. How our perception of what's even possible gets shaped. And gender plays a massive role too, right? From the very beginning. Research says gender role socialization is one of the earliest and thus potentially one of the most powerful forms of socialization.
Mm-hmm.
What that means, practically, is young people internalize and then see a narrow, gender-based range of future options for themselves. Think about classic examples. Maybe mothers advising daughters, it's important to establish your career before you have a family. It's not just advice, it reinforces specific ideas about work and childrearing, often putting this invisible pressure on women to sequence things perfectly.
Right. The have it all, but in a very specific order narrative.
Exactly. And similarly, studies often show fathers encouraging sons to be independent, competitive in careers, but not necessarily encouraging the same in daughters. Sometimes not encouraging any career focus for daughters. This creates totally different expectations and perceived options, often leading to choices aligned with stereotypes, not individual interests or talents. The stats on male-dominated fields like landscaping versus female-dominated ones like childcare really drive this home. It shows that subtle, persistent channeling of dreams based on gender.
Which is why it's so vital to reflect on this whole invisible blueprint. The mix of family dynamics, those powerful implicit memories, and the pervasive societal and cultural expectations, it all creates this formidable, often unseen force shaping our dreams. It's not about blame, it's just about awareness. But it raises that question. If these influences are woven so deeply into us, how do we, as adults seeking authenticity, even start to pull them apart? How do we recognize which parts of our dream actually belong to us? It takes a real conscious effort, doesn't it, to look beneath the surface of what just feels normal or expected.
Yeah, it really does. But despite these incredibly deep influences shaping our early dreams, so many people reach this turning point. They realize, maybe quietly at first, but undeniably, this isn't me. It's often not some dramatic crisis, but more like a persistent feeling that something's missing, a fundamental misalignment, even if they're in a settled corporate job that looks perfect on paper. That whisper, whose life am I living, just gets louder.
And that moment of disillusionment, it's fascinating. It takes, as one source put it, immense courage and a healthy dose of madness to actually step back and reevaluate those ingrained dreams, those perceived duties. For many, it means ending a potentially financially stable life. You know, the comfortable salary, the clear career path, the approval from everyone, walking away from that in a world that equates stability with success. That's no small thing. This journey isn't just about finding a new job. It's a profound act of reclaiming yourself, redefining what success even means on your own terms, moving from playing a role to really embodying who you are.
And we've got some truly inspiring stories here from 13 inspired young Indians who chose their dreams over stability that really illustrate this courage, this leap into the unknown. Let's start with Akhil Chandra. His journey really embodies this. 8 years in the mobile world, mechanical engineering degree, MBA, sounds like the definition of traditional success, right?
Textbook definition, yeah.
But then, a turning point. He was inspired after reading a book, App Empire, and it just sparked something. It pushed him to start his own app studio, Studio Mosaic. His motivation wasn't status. It was pure entrepreneurship, the desire to create, build, fueled by an early success with his own app. His challenge, well, initial setbacks. Outsourcing design didn't work out, forced him to pivot his strategy, learn on the fly. But his one-line motivation, this affirmation he held onto, it echoes through time. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul.
Akhil's story is a perfect example of how that internal nudge, sometimes from an unexpected place like a book, can trigger a total rethink of the path you were on. And we see a similar, though distinct, shift with Anna Kimia. Her story is just a powerful testament to listening to that inner voice. She was on a traditional path dentist, moving towards public health. Respected, but she got deeply disillusioned with the workings of the industry, felt lost, searching for purpose. And then her true passion, something she'd only flirted with, emerged: music. She became a DJ, an electronic music producer, and she explains it beautifully. Music is my way of trying to make sense of my journey and going back to childhood to heal and rediscover myself. Because by healing yourself first, you heal the world.
Wow, connecting healing and art so directly.
Exactly. That link between self-discovery, healing, and her art is explicit. And her biggest challenge, she wisely noted, was herself. That internal battle against external pressures, expectations, self-doubt, constantly reminding herself why you were doing what you were doing. It's that internal conviction that's often the hardest to build and the most vital to keep.
Anna Kimia's journey really highlights that deep pull towards authenticity. And another great example is Chanisinia. She spent 7 years in PR after master's in international public relations, built a stable, successful career, it seemed. But her heart was always yearning to style people. Even working in London, she spent weekends assisting stylists, kind of nurturing that secret passion. The moment of truth, that clear internal shift came one morning. Woke up, thought, this is it. It's now or never.
That decisive moment.
Yeah, made the leap out of PR, started a style blog, Machini Shorts, and her talent got noticed quickly. Landed gigs with Grazia, then Lakme Fashion Week. Her main challenge, as you'd expect leaving a stable career, stability and monetary satisfaction. Yet her motivation keeps her going, that classic saying, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life.
And what's really remarkable in these stories is the courage to prioritize aligning with yourself over societal norms, even when the money side isn't clear yet. Which brings us to Dipti Daryani Ahuja, a decade in a demanding corporate job, associate director at Nielsen. Highly reputable. Her decision to become an entrepreneur, co-founding Love the World Today, a sustainable kids' clothing line. It was, she said, a very tough decision. It wasn't just a pivot. It came from a personal need, couldn't find comfy, kid-friendly clothes for her own child, and a broader questioning of sustainability in fashion. She emphasizes this path needs immense drive and a readiness to accept failure and kickstart each time you fail.
That resilience piece is huge.
Absolutely. Her biggest challenge was the fear of failing, being way out of her comfort zone. But her guiding idea, dreams are a gentle nudge reminding you to be who you are, highlights that inner guidance pulling us towards our true selves, even through the fear.
That gentle nudge can become a powerful force, can't it? And many others echoed these feelings, showing this collective move towards authentic living. People like Lucy Gadkari leaving advertising to create a social app, Moodoo, driven by a passion for real-life connections. Namrata Tiwari, an apparel designer who left stable jobs because she could no longer derive purpose from her designs, turning to work with craft communities, documenting their stories. And Rashi Agarwal, who, even with a supportive business family, felt this itching for creative freedom, leaving a product designer role to launch her own luxury handbag company. Their paths were diverse corporate insights, advertising, design, but they all converged on that undeniable pull towards entrepreneurship, creative freedom, often facing that daunting leap from stability into the unknown.
And this leap, as these stories show, almost always comes with some powerful internal quote or philosophy that keeps them going. Lucy Gadkari's motivation, from that famous quote, captures it. And those who were seen dancing were thought to be insane by those who couldn't hear the music. It's about marching to your own beat, even if others don't get it.
Yeah, I love that one.
And Namrata Tiwari's inspiration from Jonathan Livingston Seagull. Jonathan forgot about the world he had come from, that place where the flock lived with its eyes tightly shut to the joy of flight. It's about soaring beyond the flock's limited view, embracing the joy of flight itself. And Rashi Agarwal, reflecting on her journey, wisely says, life begins at the end of your comfort zone. These individuals aren't just changing jobs. They're fundamentally redefining their relationship with life, success themselves. The common thread is this deep desire to build something truly theirs: sustainable clothing, a social app, luxury handbags, and feeling profoundly alive doing it despite the challenges. These aren't just career shifts, they're acts of self-reclamation. Okay, so we've heard these incredible stories, people consciously pivoting towards their true calling, sometimes against huge odds. But how do you actually do that? How do you go from recognizing an unchosen dream to actively creating an authentic one? This brings us to the crucial, but maybe counterintuitive idea of unlearning. Gustavo Rossetti from Fearless Culture emphasizes that substantial growth is not the result of learning, but of unlearning.
That's interesting. Not learning, but unlearning.
Right. It's not about forgetting, like wiping a slate clean. It's more about intentionally refraining from old assumptions and habits to make space, mental, emotional space, for new possibilities, new perspectives, new ways of being. It means questioning, challenging those existing assumptions, biases, attitudes, and being open to new perspectives that align with who you are now, not who you were conditioned to be. It fits perfectly with this self-discovery journey. What stands out to you about this unlearning mindset? It really flips how we usually think about growth.
It really does sound counterintuitive at first, doesn't it? We're so conditioned to add knowledge, add skills, accumulate stuff. But Rossetti says unlearning is all about subtraction, letting go of what doesn't serve you anymore, actively releasing those mental models, those behaviors holding you back. Lisa Essel, writing for Tiny Buddha, offers this surprisingly freeing tip that embodies this. Don't think about your path in life. That phrase, your path, implies there's only one right way, creates immense pressure, right or wrong turns.
Yeah, huge pressure.
Instead, she suggests profoundly, there are infinite routes to a satisfying, uplifting life. Whatever decision you make and have made before, you're on the right path. It's all the path. That just immediately takes the pressure off, doesn't it? Invites curiosity, exploration, self-compassion, instead of rigid adherence to, say, script, trusting the process of unfolding.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's about shifting from seeking external validation or following outside directions to really tapping into your own deep inner wisdom. Esile advises, forget everything your guidance counselor said and maybe your parents, spouse, friends, that influencer, because she argues, no one but me knows my dreams and desires. The greatest joy, the deepest fulfillment, she says, comes from what we genuinely hanker for. So to access this inner compass, she suggests asking a simple but really profound question, one that bypasses limitations and pressures. What life would you choose if you could wave a wand and have every skill that you needed? It frees you from the how for a second, lets the what emerge from pure desire.
And it's not about having this perfectly mapped out plan before you take even one step, right? Esel builds on this. Stop worrying about how to get that, or if there's even a good idea. Our brains want certainty, that map. But as she says, to get to where we really want to go, there is no pre-drawn map. The key, the only certainty you need, is just the next step. Big changes, she reminds us, rarely happen in one giant leap. They come from a series of incremental decisions. You don't have to quit your job tomorrow. Maybe just order that book, send that email, meet that person who inspires you. Consistently taking that next manageable step, building momentum.
But this raises a critical point. Look, how do you actually figure out that next step? Or even more basic, how do you tell the difference between a real inner desire and just that noisy mind talk, the ego, logic, fear? Dr. Nicole LePera gives a clear way to think about this. She says, mind talk is usually rooted in logic, comparison, external stuff, it sounds like. Bill moved to Italy and started a vineyard, so I should go to Italy. It's copying, reasoning, shoulds. Intuition, though, is a deep feeling, a subtle knowing from within. It might be a felt sense, a clear image, a quiet pull, like, I can just see myself wandering around Rome, eating pizza. It just feels right. It's felt, not reasoned. Mind says should, intuition says feels right.
And if you're still not sure if that felt sense is fuzzy, LePera wisely advises, just dip your toe in. Test it out. Take a small, low-stakes action. See how it feels, how it resonates. And don't worry if it feels confusing at first. Esel adds, really encouragingly, that feeling discombobulated is part of it. It's not a bad thing. Rejoice, you're on your way. That disorientation often means you're moving past the familiar, those old patterns. But yes, stepping into the unknown, making a lunge for what's important to us is scary. Always is.
Always scary. It's human.
Right. So to handle the fear, she suggests helpful things like finding a mentor who's walked a similar path, being careful who you tell about your early plans to avoid negativity, reading inspiring stories. It's about consciously building resilience and support for this new, authentic self you're becoming.
And what's really fascinating is how taking action connects with healing those old childhood wounds. Ranveer Allahbadia strongly emphasizes taking action. He believes spiritual progress also happens when you take actions towards the goals you've set for yourself. For him, consistently creating content, showing up, recording, editing, publishing, is a tangible form of spiritual progress. It's not just introspection, it's externalizing that inner work, making it real in the world. True transformation needs both inner shifts and outward steps.
He also talks about the deep, often tough work of releasing those painful implicit memories through deep meditations. Ranveer shares how he'd often cry during meditation, feeling extremely light afterward, like releasing stored pain. He even connected his lifelong, intense hatred for gobi aloo, a specific dish, to a negative childhood dinner talk with his dad, where he felt really insulted. That's implicit memory again. The event might fade, but the emotional charge, the aversion, stays. This deep internal work, acknowledging, processing, consciously releasing these buried emotions, is so key to clearing the path for self-belief. letting the accelerator impulses work without the brake.
And it's not just about the past. Ranveer stresses that even if those wounds aren't fully healed, the consistent actions you take lead to results. And that validation from the world does heal that lack of self-belief scar from my childhood. For him, the social media likes, subscribers, awards their external validation that, in a healthy way, helps build and reinforce that fragile self-belief. His mantra is powerful. Those tools of self-doubt. Channelize that negative energy into actions. Take that overwhelming negative energy, that self-doubt, and consciously turn it into tangible steps forward. Knowing the positive outcomes, however small, will feed back and reinforce your belief. It's a powerful loop.
So how do we put this into a structured approach? This idea of unlearning can feel a bit abstract. Gustavo Rossetti, from Fearless Culture, offers a clear 3-step cycle of unlearning.
Right, makes it more concrete. The first step is unlearn, recognize old mental models. This is the diagnostic part. Crucial. It's about identifying those unquestionable truths you hold, the limiting beliefs running in the background, the default formulas for success you've adopted that don't serve who you are now. Rossetti notes most people think they're self-aware, but true self-awareness is rare. It needs that balance of deep internal reflection and getting external feedback to see your blind spots, things you can't see about yourself. So ask yourself, what are my unquestionable truths about myself, others? What limiting beliefs do I have about my capabilities, about life? Where am I consistently not getting the results I want? What's my default success formula, external achievement or internal fulfillment? It's understanding the deep why behind wanting to unlearn something. That's the foundation.
Okay, so once you've done that hard but freeing work of recognizing those old models, step 2 is relearn, identify a new model. This is conscious creation. Finding or creating new ways of thinking, behaving that align with your current goals and, importantly, consider the current context, not how things used to be or how others expect them to be. This might mean evolving old behaviors, ditching some completely, or starting brand new ones. Rossetti calls it intentionally rewiring our brain to explore the road less traveled. You reflect, what am I really willing to do to get my desired outcomes? How can I make this relearning intentional, not accidental? What does think big but start small look like for me here? For example, if your old model was must be in the office 9 to 5, the new model might be consciously exploring hybrid work, building new routines and mindsets around that, building the mental architecture for your desired future.
And finally, the third, often hardest step, breakthrough. Embed the new behaviors. This is where it becomes real. Consistent, deliberate practice of those new mental habits until they feel natural, second nature, leading to a profound new sense of self. This isn't just tweaking things, it's a transformation where you move beyond old ways into a new paradigm. It absolutely requires commitment, a consistent method, and accepting it's not a linear process. There will be setbacks, moments you slip back, times old patterns pull hard. Think of Nelson Mandela in prison, unlearning anger, relearning forgiveness as crucial for his country's future. That took immense, consistent effort. So ask yourself, why do I truly want this new behavior? How will I practice unlearning the old, learning the new consistently? How will I measure success? What's my plan for when triggers pull me back? It's a continuous cycle of growth leading to real liberation.
Okay, so you've bravely identified those unchosen dreams, started the unlearning, taken those first steps towards authenticity. But here's the emotional tightrope so many of us walk. How do you break free from these deep expectations, especially when you fear hurting, disappointing, maybe even alienating the very people who maybe unconsciously instilled them? That conflict between self-integrity and family loyalty.
This is often the toughest part, isn't it? And it brings up that profound, almost paradoxical question from psychotherapist Andrew J. Bowman. Why does telling the truth feel dishonorable? How did being inauthentic become honorable? Think about that. For many, especially in more collectivistic cultures, keeping family harmony, even if it means sacrificing your truth, feels like the honorable thing. Bauman asserts that telling the truth of one's family of origin is vital to understanding the truth of one's own life. We often fall into protecting our parents by not telling difficult truths about how their expectations affected us. We think they can't handle it, or it's just easier to keep quiet. But Bauman says clearly, our parents are grown-ups, not children, and in most cases we do not need to protect them. In fact, doing so enables them to stay in their blindness, hindering not just your growth, but maybe their own understanding too. It's the self-betrayal that actually stops mutual growth.
That's a really powerful, maybe liberating perspective. Challenge is a deep norm. Bauman's message is impactful. Telling your truth is the best expression of honor you can give their parents. Doesn't mean being violent, aggressive, arrogant. It means truth, rooted in kindness and love, delivered with respect for yourself and them. He adds pointedly, breaking unhealthy family norms is honorable. Just keeping the peace at the cost of your integrity, your authentic self. That's not only not honorable, it's potentially cowardice because familial peace is not actual peace if it's built on inauthenticity. It's about aligning your inner world and outer expression, no matter who you're with. Not about estrangement, but authentic connection.
And this deep fear of disloyalty, this internal conflict, often ties into what Mental Health America calls toxic guilt. This isn't healthy guilt telling you you did wrong and need to fix it. This is a chronic, pervasive sense of obligation. It's particularly common in collectivistic cultures, like many South Asian cultures, where the family's well-being and honor are highly valued, sometimes overwhelmingly so, overriding individual desires. In these contexts, guilt tripping is used to force people to comply with familial values and expectations. Think about phrases like, "After all we sacrificed for you, how can you think of not being a doctor?" Or, "Don't you care about our reputation?" Classic examples meant to trigger guilt and steer choices, not allow authentic exploration. This is a huge, often crippling issue for young adults trying to find their own way.
And the fallout from giving in to this toxic guilt is serious. Creates deep internal conflict. Malia Khan explains it leads to constantly putting other people's needs before our own, even when it's hurting them, and ultimately hurting you. Maybe apologizing endlessly for things not your fault, accommodating others at your own expense, even excusing bad behavior from elders for respect. Unchecked, this chronic guilt turns into deep shame, worsens mental health, leads to huge resentment towards the very people you're trying to appease. As she puts it so powerfully, capturing the tragedy, in the quest to not abandon our loved ones, we may end up abandoning ourselves. It's unsustainable, self-destructive, drains your energy, shrinks your potential.
So, given how pervasive toxic guilt can be, and the real desire to keep healthy connections, how do you navigate this without totally cutting ties or burning bridges? Malia Khan offers 3 really practical strategies. First, identify how guilt shows up in your life. This needs deliberate introspection. Journal or just mentally note moments where your choices feel driven by obligation or dread, not genuine desire. Write down the phrases or thoughts that trigger it. This helps you see patterns you might be repeating unconsciously, bringing them into awareness, like, do you always say yes, even when exhausted, fearing you'll seem unhelpful? That's a pattern.
Just noticing it is the first step.
Exactly. Second, get in touch with your true values. Build a stronger, more resilient personal identity rooted in your core beliefs, not inherited ones. Clearly identify what's truly important to you, your guiding principles, what brings you joy and purpose. A stronger internal compass makes you feel more secure in your decisions, less swayed by external pressure or guilt tricks. When you're aligned with your values, your choices have an integrity that makes manipulation less effective.
Makes sense. Know your own North Star.
Precisely. And third, set clear and consistent boundaries. You might not be able to cut off family who use emotional blackmail, but you can limit time with them and, crucially, limit what personal info you share. Clearly, calmly state that certain decisions, especially career or life path, are not up for debate. I appreciate your concern, but my career choice isn't something I'm discussing further. Or, I love you, but I need to make this decision for myself. Khan reminds us, importantly, there's nothing wrong with sharing your needs if you do it in a healthy way, and she repeats, breaking unhealthy family norms is honorable. It paves the way for healthier, authentic relationships based on respect, not obligation.
These strategies are vital not just for family, but for all relationships, including partners. Dr. Nicole Lapira has profound insights on healing trauma bonds, those repeated relating patterns formed in childhood to maintain connection, even if dysfunctional. She describes her own powerful moment, for years, blaming partners for being emotionally unavailable until she realized, I wasn't emotionally available to me. That shifted, everything focus moved from blame to her own internal world.
And what's truly fascinating is how these early childhood dynamics often replicate almost perfectly in adult relationships. For instance, one partner might instinctively withdraw, shut down when overwhelmed, just like maybe an emotionally avoidant mother did in their childhood. That withdrawal then powerfully triggers the other partner's earliest wound, perhaps deep fear of abandonment from their own childhood. It becomes this ingrained, often unconscious cycle. 2 people replaying past dynamics, each triggering the other's unhealed wounds. Dr. Lapera describes how in her own relationship, her partner needing to shut down and leave when overwhelmed would trigger her abandonment wound, leading her to scream and yell and run after her, escalating things destructively. Both in those moments are desperately trying to feel safe and connected, but using different, often counterproductive, triggering tactics.
She stresses that healing these trauma bonds or any deep relational pattern requires a lot of honesty. And often that honesty can only really emerge after the heat of the moment, once people have regulated themselves. It takes real commitment to understanding your own triggers, your escalation points, and empathetically learning your partners too. Crucially, learning to communicate needs clearly, calmly, being able to say, can we pause this and revisit it later when we're calmer, instead of spiraling, deliberately interrupting the old script.
But this raises that key question many listeners might have. What if my partner isn't willing, isn't on the same page? Dr. LaPera points out, you can't make others change. Healing is individual. However, and this is profound, doing your own work oftentimes can trickle into your relationship and shift the way you experience it in a way that makes it more sustainable. Sometimes just you showing up differently, responding differently, embodying a new pattern can surprisingly alter the whole dynamic. The other person has to react to something new. Or conversely, doing your own work might give you clarity that the relationship as is isn't right for your future. It's about taking radical responsibility for your actions, projections, healing. And it's all underpinned by the amazing truth of neuroplasticity, our brain's ability to reorganize, form new connections, literally rewire itself throughout life. Those ingrained patterns, internal or relational, they aren't permanent. We have the power to build new ones. That gives us immense power to redefine our future, individually and in our relationships. It's incredibly empowering. Hashtag tag outro going.
Wow. We've taken a really profound deep dive today into something so personal, yet so universally felt. The dreams we carry and where they actually come from. From the subtle, pervasive influence of family patterns, cultural conditioning, to the immense courage it takes for people to make bold leaps, redefine success for themselves, and that delicate, vital art of honoring your own truth without falling into toxic guilt or breaking essential bonds. It's just so clear that our life paths are shaped by much more than just conscious choice. It's this intricate dance between who we are and the blueprints we were given.
Exactly. And this journey of self-discovery, of conscious unlearning, brave relearning, it's ongoing. It's an evolving process. As Ranveer Allahbadia put it so well, embracing those parts of yourself, even the painful bits, have kind of made you who you are. The goal isn't erasing the past or disconnecting from your roots. It's understanding them, integrating them, and then most powerfully, consciously choosing what you carry forward and what you gently release, making room for your authentic self to really emerge. Remember, a life lived authentically, aligned with your true desires, your values, that's perhaps the greatest honor you can give yourself. And in its own transformative way, it's often the most profound legacy you can offer to those who shaped you, becoming the truest, most vibrant version of yourself.
So as you reflect on this deep dive, maybe consider this provocative thought. If your truest dream, the one that really ignites your soul, makes you feel most alive, if that dream requires you to unlearn a belief that's deeply ingrained, or to gently but firmly redraw a blueprint that was never truly yours, are you brave enough to take that first small deliberate step, knowing that in doing so, you're not rebelling against your past, but maybe finally, profoundly becoming you?